So today we're talking about the stages of grief, and I'm going to share with you my experiences of those different stages in this journey through grief. Stay tuned. Hi Wood fam, this is Leo with One Happy Widow, and today we're going to talk about the stages of grief. So this is probably something that you have heard a lot about. I've read lists of there are 5 stages of grief, there are 7 stages of grief, there are 10 stages of grief, 12. I don't know how many stages there are. Some of them kind of meld into each other, but I'm just going to list all the different stages that I have read about, and then I'm going to share with you my experiences with them and how they affected me and how I went through those stages. First of all, you don't go from one stage to the next stage to the next stage. It's not a linear progression. It's not a straight line. You will go from one stage, you will go to another. You might go back to that stage again. You kind of shift and kind of meld through from one stage to another. You might skip over a stage. You might go in different order. But this is just a general list of the stages of grief that most people experience in the generalized order in which they experience them. Maybe you can relate to some of these, and you can probably, once you start hearing about them, you'll probably start to recognize, okay, I think I might be in one of those stages. All of these stages are normal. It's part of the human condition. However, the time that we start to worry about you is when you get stuck in one of those stages of grief. So it's natural to go through the stages. It's natural to maybe even stay in a stage for a while. But if you get stuck in one of those stages and you're not seeing yourself progress and maybe move towards a new stage or another stage, then it might be time for you to think about getting some professional help. Talking to a counselor, going to see a doctor, talking to some friends, joining a grief group, things like that. So I'll add some resources down in the description below for some places that might be able to get you started to look in the right direction. Okay? The first stage, I'm not going to number these stages because some of them kind of overlap, and I don't want to say that there's 7 stages or 5 stages or whatever. I'm just going to list them. But the first stage that we almost all go through when we start to grieve the loss of a spouse or a loved one in general, but specifically I'm talking about the loss of a spouse. And that is the stage of shock and disbelief. Now, depending on how your spouse died, would kind of show how you're going to go through that shock and disbelief. For me, my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So my stage of shock and disbelief started in the beginning of the diagnosis, way before his death. So that was something that kind of triggered something called anticipatory grief. I have a whole video on that. I will post a link to it up above. Here, somewhere, up here. A lot of times our grief starts, in that process as soon as we find out that we are losing our loved one, or when we find out that we have lost our loved one. So the shock and disbelief is just, it just stops you in your tracks. As soon as we got that diagnosis, it was disbelief. It was, how is this actually happening? What is going on? Like, am I in a bad dream? I kept thinking I was going to wake up from a bad dream.
So tell me, what have I done to deserve this?
I felt like I was in a movie. I almost felt like I was outside of myself. I wasn't really like watching myself, but I almost felt like my mind was sort of out here and my body was just kind of going through some automatic motions, and I felt very numb, and I felt very, it was definitely shock. Like that's all I can say. I could not believe this was going on. Like, how is this happening right now? My husband was 42 and they just told him he's gonna die. So, and then like everything else just starts to spiral after that. So I can only imagine if you got a phone call, or if you had a policeman came to your house, or if you were there, when your spouse passed away, that shock of, oh my gosh, this is, like it's almost like your brain breaks. You cannot even understand or comprehend what is actually happening right there. Then the next stage would go into denial and isolation. So denial is probably right along with that shock and disbelief. Like, I can't believe this is happening, or this is not happening. Like, I'm not going to accept it. This is not happening. This is all a bad dream. I'm going to wake up any minute and it's just going to go away. Isolation comes from you probably feel like you're the only person that is going through this right now. Like everybody else is looking at you and you're going through something, and people might be trying to reach out to you, but no one has any idea how you're feeling. They cannot relate. And you feel like you're very alone, because guess what? You were just a half of a whole couple, and now you're suddenly all alone and you're all by yourself, and you're having to deal with this huge loss, probably the biggest loss you will ever experience, and you are by yourself and you're alone, and you don't have the person that you would have gone to for comfort and for help and for advice and shoulder to cry on is the one that is causing these feelings, and he or she is not there anymore. And these next stages might not go in exactly the same order, so I'm just going to list them, and then we're going to, you can sort of see how you might progress through them as well. Panic.
Panic! Oh, I'm sorry. I can handle it.
So the next phase, I think, might be you are kind of starting to realize the reality of what's going on. Like this, oh my gosh, this is really happening. Like my husband is dying, or my husband is dead, or my wife has just died. And that all of a sudden it's a panic, like, you can't stop it. Time's going on. You can't turn back the time. You can't stop what has just happened or is happening. And you start to feel like things are out of control. You can't control that. You can't control your life. You can't control your emotions. You're on a roller coaster of time, and you cannot stop it. There's no brakes. So that panic of, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? All these thoughts are popping into your head at the same time about basically from that moment on to, the rest of your life. What is going to happen, and how is your life going to change? Because, your whole life is uprooted at that point. So that is an overwhelming, a crushing feeling. And it can lead to a sense of panic or anxiety, really high anxiety, maybe an anxiety attack here and there, from just the gravity and the huge weight of what that actually means for your whole life. And then there is a stage of guilt. You're going to go through a what if I had taken him to the hospital sooner when he said his stomach was hurting, and they could have caught the cancer earlier and maybe treated it. What if? There's so many what ifs that you have to go back and think, what if I had changed the butterfly effect? What if I had changed one little thing, and that would have changed the course of the rest of my life? You move into a stage of anger and resistance, and I think those kind of go hand in hand. And I think first it starts off as anger, and then it kind of morphs into resistance. So the anger could be angry at God. A lot of people get angry at their creator, or depending on what their faith is, how a lot of Christians feel like, if God is a loving God, why would he take my husband from me?
God, why do you hate me?
We're rolling.
Smite me, almighty smiter! You're the one who should be fired! The only one around here not doing his job is you! Answer me!
And so that's something that's kind of difficult to grapple with, and so you have to reconcile that with your faith and your feelings, and it could be angry at your spouse. Honestly, everybody's going to die, and we're going to die of something. We're going to die of some reason, and honestly, we all drive too fast sometimes. We all eat foods that we shouldn't eat sometimes, and we all say things and get angry at each other sometimes, and so it's not fair to project that anger onto that person who is gone, but we go through that. We also go through a period many times where we're angry at everybody else because we lost a person, and it seems like we're the only one. Everybody else out there didn't lose their person. And so we see people holding hands, people who are happy and spending time together. I'd read a lot of Facebook posts, and I'd get mad about hearing women who complained about their husbands leaving their clothes on the floor or doing something stupid, and they complain about it, and I would think, well, at least you have a husband to complain about. I was jealous that they had something that I didn't have anymore.
He's an angry elf. Look at you!
I didn't really go through a lot of that anger, that phase for me. I went in it, and I kind of went past it and came out of it pretty quickly. I don't know why. It just wasn't something that I spent a lot of time feeling. I have seen a lot of people who are stuck in that angry phase or that resistant phase, the phase of I'm never going to be happy again, or I will never meet another man and I will never love again. I will never take my wedding ring off.
She went into her room and shut the door. And for days she neither slept nor ate.
I will never love again.
I will never call myself a widow because I'm still married, no matter where my husband is. Those kind of things. Resistant of not accepting the fact that of their status. And I do think that that is a phase that a lot of people enter into. And I think there's something called complicated grief. And I'll make another video about that soon. But complicated grief, when you get stuck in that phase, you know, we go through that anger. And it's normal to go through that phase. And we all go through that phase in some form or fashion. But when someone gets stuck in that phase and stays there for months or maybe even years, that is not healthy. And that is when it's time for that person to seek help to try to get past that phase. Because we're not meant to stay in these stages of grief. We are not meant to get stuck in any stage of grief. We are meant to process it. We are meant to get through it. And we are meant to come out on the other side and see a light at the end of this tunnel. And I don't mean get over it, and I don't mean be okay with it, and I don't mean, you know, not be sad or not miss our spouse anymore. I don't mean any of that. I just mean that we are meant to process through all these stages of grief and then learn to live with our loss and learn to create a new life for ourselves with new purpose, with new happiness, with new joy. Next, we go into another phase called bargaining. Bargaining is in that same category as, God, if you could just give me back my husband, I would never think bad thoughts again. I would never be mean to him again. Or if I could only have him back, I would live my life so much differently. And somewhere in there, we have a stage of physical symptoms. As a symptom of grief, it is a physical manifestation of our feelings. So it could come out as heart palpitations, depression, anxiety, sleeplessness and restlessness, headaches. Did I say heart palpitations? Heart problems. It also could be a result of changing our lifestyle from our grief and then that causing more physical problems. So either overeating, undereating, not having an appetite and not eating and losing a bunch of weight and losing a lot of muscle mass and then not being able to sleep and then not being comfortable. It's just kind of a whirlwind of these physical symptoms that come out, and they could be stemmed from the grief. Then there is a stage of depression. Our life is not the same. You know, we're still left here with this grief, and now we're suddenly by ourselves. And I think the reality of things start to crush down on us, and we realize, wow, you know, I'm a widow. It's almost like the newness of the grief has worn off, and now it's just this constant grief that's just there all the time. And you're starting to wonder, how the hell am I supposed to live the rest of my life with this loss? You're never ever going to see them again on this side of heaven. And that is a real bummer. And so when you finally, you know, kind of come to terms with that loss, it can be really crushing. Like, what am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? It's okay for you to go through that stage. It's normal for you to go through that stage. Depending on how acutely you're feeling those depressing feelings, that may be when it's time to go see somebody. That may be when it's time that you need some medicine. You know, that's something you should talk to your doctor about, but help you manage your feelings. So again, the going through the stage of depression is normal and natural. It's when you get stuck in that depressive state, when you get stuck in that stage of depression and you feel hopeless, you feel like you don't have a future, when you feel like you're waiting around every single day, just waiting to die so that you can be with your spouse again, and you can't get past that stage.
Fight against the sadness, Artex! Artex, please. You're letting the sadness of the swamps get to you. You have to try. You have to care. For me. You're my friend. I love you.
That's when it's time to get help. That's another stage you could get stuck in complicated grief. Time to talk to somebody. time to go get some support, time to go get some help. All right, now we're starting to turn the corner a little bit, and we get into that stage of hope. And I think this is the kind of stage where we've sort of we're grieving and we're lost, we're losing, we feel lost, we have all these feelings, we're going down and down. And I think this is sort of like where we hit rock bottom and we start to look up and we start to see that other people that we know, maybe other widows and widowers, are starting to have a life. You know, they're smiling again. Maybe they're moving forward, finding happiness, finding love, finding a new job, saying more positive things. And we start feeling like, I really want that. Like, I am tired of feeling sad all the time. I want to feel better. At some point, you're going to go from not caring whether you feel better or not even think about it, to some point you're going to start saying, I want to feel better. I don't want to live the rest of my life feeling depressed. I don't want to feel the rest of my life crying every day, not being able to get out of bed, and barely being able to make it to work. That's a really hard transition, okay? That's a really hard place to be. And a lot of people think, okay, I know I want it, I just don't know how to get there. How do I turn things around and start allowing myself to have hope again, you know, that my life can get better? And so again, that might be a time when you need some help, or you need some support, or you need to start looking out there for some resources. That's going to be the basis of one of my courses. When that course goes live, I'm going to be posting it down here, and I'm going to make a video about it, and I'm going to create a course, a class, an online resource for you to be able to sign up, that is going to show you some concrete steps that you can use, some methods that you can use, that when you are ready, when you are saying, I want to feel better, I just don't know how, that's where that course is going to help you. That's when you know you're going to be ready to sign up for that, and I'm going to help you get to that point, you know, get that bounce back and turn you back around, and help you come up with some strategies that you can use to implement in your own life to get yourself to that place. Once you know you want to start feeling better, that's when you start thinking about acceptance. This is how it's going to be, and it's not going to change. Like, that part of your situation, you're always going to be widowed. So it's time to start making a new life for yourself, a new phase of your life that's going to be different, but it doesn't have to be so terrible. And so once you get to that point of acceptance, where you feel at peace with what has happened to you. And I don't mean at peace like you're okay with it. I mean at peace like, yes, this has happened. This is terrible. And now it's time to move forward. Make some decisions for my life and get myself to a better place. And so once we get to that point, it's almost like a quiet, serene place. And however you get there, whether it be with medication, with support groups, with Facebook groups, with doctors, with friends, by yourself. I mean, you can get there a lot of different ways. But once you get there, then it's time to start the next phase, which is the rebuilding phase. So this is where you take decisions, you make decisions in your life. You start taking steps to move forward. My bottom line is this, when I'm trying to help people, is if you don't feel like you can find happiness, then go find purpose, because the happiness will follow. So if you can't go out there and just find something that makes you happy, if you're having a hard time finding joy in anything that you do, go out there and find some purpose. Go out there and find someone else who needs help and help them, because you have something. Everyone has something that will benefit other people.
I'm going to do a great show today, and I'm going to help people because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Go volunteer somewhere. Get a new job. Go to the dog shelter, the hospital, go to nursing homes, go to homeless shelters, food banks, to your local church. And there is so much to be done, and there's always a need. And so at some point, if you try to start doing that, you will start to feel valued. You will start to feel like people need you. And that will be the first step towards being able to allow yourself to be happy. And so that's what I want for you. That's what I want for all of us, is to go out and try to find purpose in our life and give ourselves a reason to smile again. It doesn't have to be another person. It doesn't mean you have to move forward and find new love if that's not something that's in the cards for you, and that's perfectly fine. But you still have a life. That life is yours to live. go out there and find happiness. And if you can't find happiness, or if you're not ready to yet, go find purpose. Commit yourself to something. Sign yourself up for an event and go ahead and do it, and go show up. Show up and talk to some people. Okay, so that's, I don't know how many steps and stages that is, but and once you get to one stage, if you revert back to another stage you've already been through and then you go forward, that's totally normal and it's okay. Just remember, these are stages. They're not set in stone. You're not going to go through them in a certain amount of time. But the main thing to remember is that as you're going through these stages of grief, if you feel like you're stuck in one, if you feel like you're going through and then you end up stuck in one stage and you can't seem to get yourself out of it, it's time to seek some help. And if you're not sure where to go and you're not sure what kind of help to get, then go to our Facebook group. Join our Facebook group. We have a Facebook group called One Happy Widow. So just look up facebook.com/group/OneHappyWidow. You'll find us there. And join us. We have a really good group of ladies, some men, sorry guys, mostly it's the widowed people, but we have a really good, supportive, positive group of ladies that will empathize with you and then offer you some support and give you some ideas of what you could do to help yourself feel better. And so if you can't find your help somewhere, come to us. And if you really are in need of something even more serious, if you have a serious need and something that our group can't help you with, then we'll help you find some resources and we'll help get you in the right direction. We'll help you get there, and you just have to get yourself there. And then we can all move forward together. So hopefully this was a little bit of a help for you, and that I'm not rambling too much, but I think we've all gone through most of these stages. If you're a fresh widow, you're probably going through some of these early stages, and just know that this is kind of the progression that you're going to see. And if you need to reach out to us, go ahead and do that. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you won't miss any videos that are coming up. And just hang in there, because I promise that you're not always going to feel like you feel right now. Life is like a roller coaster. So however you're feeling right now, it's not always going to stay the same. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, and we're going to be there to help you get through it all. So stick with us, and thank you for joining the Wood Fam. Comment below if you have anything to add, and until the next video, we will see you next time. Bye.